SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae is returning record amounts of money to Mississippians, whether it's through the College and Career Savings Program or the hundreds of millions in unclaimed money awaiting your claim. Treasurer David McRae says get your applications and claims in today. Treasury.ms.gov.
Roll pre-record on my count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Roll A, fade up on A.
Southern Miss to the top. You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour.
Okay, let's go. Super Talk Eagle Hour is on the air. Kelly's dancing to the music.
Yeah, I got my Dixie Darling arms
Football
going. Football
season must not be far off.
Not far at all.
You got the leotards out and everything?
They shrunk on me, Bob. I don't.
It's amazing.
I don't know what happened since last season.
You've been a victim of that. You've bought cheap clothing for the last few years. It just seems to shrink as you wash it.
When they just hang in the closet, I think that's what it is.
Well, I saw a shirt and it says Ship Island.
Yeah, he's
and
been out there. Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought it said something else, and I was like, that must be his house. I don't know.
When were you at Ship Island? I don't believe you.
Where do you think it's got its name? With the ship. That's what I look like out there. Laying on the beach.
Did you actually go out there? I didn't think you liked.
No, he's on the whale watching tour in the water.
Sun and salt water and stuff like that.
But these shirts have the SPF on them, so I don't get skin cancer, things like that.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah,
thank goodness for that.
Were you in the water and they were looking for whales?
Everybody's being so mean.
Man, I thought that he was raised better than that.
I told you before we went on the air. I think we've had a negative influence on him.
The type of manners he's going to teach beautiful little Esther, to disrespect his elders.
Speaking of manners, before we get into any sports discussion, I saw The Odyssey this weekend by Christopher Nolan. Obviously, this is the movie that's been hyped up for months and months and months. Spectacular. Go see the movie if you haven't. Just a shameless plug for The Odyssey.
Even if you don't know what it's about?
Yes. Yeah, it's very clear that it's pandering to both sides. If you've never read the novel or however the manuscript or whatever you word it, you'll know what's happening in the movie for sure.
Okay. Because Iliad and the Odyssey, most everybody I know, we had to read it as part of English in high school.
I did too.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, did you have to read anything?
Well, Ribsy and Snoopy.
Cartoons. Back then they had cartoons that came in the paper every day. All right, let's get to work. Please. Kelly sat down and had an extensive interview with the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference. We want to bring you that in 2 parts today. Let's get right to it, Kelly. Set up the first part. You guys talked a lot about NIL.
Well, it's a new day, and things continue to change, and so we tried to ask the commissioner what's the outline going forward, that and a myriad of other issues. Louisiana Tech this morning in your welcoming speech about the Sun Belt. Was Louisiana Tech always like the number one school? And hypothetically, just for fun, had Louisiana Tech not worked out, then what?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one thing I will say is Louisiana Tech is the perfect fit. And there are a lot of schools that are interested in the Sun Belt and would certainly want to come and join this great league, which I can appreciate with our membership and the quality of those schools. But Louisiana Tech was perfect. Geography was perfect. Their tradition of winning was perfect. And so we're lucky. We had one spot that we wanted to fill to get even. And we ended up getting the perfect school in the perfect location with the perfect history and great staff, and it's going to be a wonderful fit.
You mentioned this morning that you obviously support the Senate bill to protect College Sports Act, but with all due respect, it was kind of a lukewarm, I thought, because you think it could be better. If you could magically wave that wand, what would you do to make it better?
Yeah, the things that we love about it are the transfers, what it does in transfer space, what it does in eligibility, and some of the liability protections. But where I think it falls short is it still allow people to seek remedies, whether it's the bill or those things, in state court, and that's a huge problem, right? We've seen that before. People can go in, contest eligibility, state court, they generally always get it. So I think all that kind of any private right of action, any kind of a grievance that you have against something in the bill, that all should either be protected from an antitrust perspective, or it's got to go to federal court. So I think all the state court stuff has to be out of it. I also think that the bill right now, in some cases, mandates your roster size, what sports you have, sometimes who you can play depending on what happens. I think all that stuff has to get out of the bill. I mean, I don't know that we want the federal government telling our schools what sports they can have and how big their roster should be. So I think that stuff should not be in there. And then I think there needs to be a single standard for NIL and for investigations and all those things, and that, schools in one state aren't living by a certain set of rules that are different from schools in another state. So I think if they made those modifications and also kind of, kept private equity kind of out of some of the Super League stuff, then I think the bill would then really be kind of a better bill than it is.
So in some regards, alligator arms where it was too short, but in other parts, overreaching.
I think that's right. Yeah, 100%. Which I think could be thematic with federal government, right? Because you got to do all this horse trading to get this and that, and everyone's got a special interest here and there, and the next thing you know, it's like a Christmas tree.
With NIL and transfer portal and so on, and you're seeing a lot of this where teams literally turn it around in 1 year. Right. A lot of things have to go right. But if that is the continuing trend, this is more of an administrative question than a conference question. Just want to get your opinion. Would you anticipate when schools are in the market for head coaches that because of the immediacy of being able to turn a team around, that we might start seeing shorter duration of head coach contracts?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure if it's going to be shorter duration of the contracts per se. What I will say, though, is there is less patience in the system. And I think that's all the way around. I think expectations are really high. I think patience is really low. And so I do think, as you think about just tenure generally, there's a lot of downward pressure on that just because people expect to win yesterday, let alone, and no matter when you were hired, how long you were there, they expect you to be really good really quickly. And part of that is you've seen it. Obviously you saw what Coach Signetti did at Indiana. That was 2 years. And really you could argue it was 1 year because his first year he went to the college football playoff. And the second year he won a national championship. 2 years. And so I just feel like that becomes the expectation. So I think you're onto something in terms of there certainly is going to be some pressure. I think people are a lot less patient, and we'll see that in a lot of different forms, but certainly volatility.
And again, going over your speech this morning, I was really intrigued by the term, quoting your words, the irrational market of NIL buyers. Could you fill in some blanks on what you mean by that?
Sure. I think one of the things that really is hard about NIL is the fact that if you can transfer every year, in some ways you're a free agent every year. And so in some ways you're always kind of bidding against yourself to keep your players, and then you're trying to steal other players. And so I think that means that the cost of certain positions go up at a rate that wouldn't happen if it was a normal market. And when I say normal market, which is if there was a one-time transfer rule, you could transfer one time, and then after that you have to do a year in residence. It would mean that there's less movement, less volatility, and I think things would be a little more rational in terms of how things are priced and those kind of things. Because right now, there's a center that's making $5 million, and maybe they're totally worth it, but part of it is you don't want to lose your center. And so if they can go somewhere else, they might be playing against you, plus you need to fill that. You're going to pay whatever it takes to keep them. And so what I would say is if there was a more rational market where you just can't move all the time, I just think that would help to kind of keep the market a little more stable.
Kind of joking, but the true American capitalist would say, no, Mr. Commissioner, the market determines, what somebody is worth. So I think
that's right. But you don't see that anywhere in sports, right? You don't see free agent every year in NFL or in Major League Baseball or NBA, those kind of things. So I think when you're trying to build sports teams, I think it makes it really challenging.
All right, that's Commissioner Gill. We're going to have another part of that interview in the second segment. But thoughts, guys, I can't really tell where he falls on this legislation, Kelly.
I think anything is better than nothing. That's the way I kind of read it. It's a start. Could it be tweaked? Could it be made better? Yes. But the fact that they're trying to do something better than nothing.
Yeah, that's where I get it too. It's like I don't like all of the little indentions and all the other subtext and subparagraphs, but overall, something is certainly better than the current state we're in, and I agree with them in that.
All right, when we come back, and I can't wait for this, I actually haven't heard this in its entirety myself, but Kelly asked the commissioner about basketball, what's going to be done, and about baseball, and why Southern Miss and Coastal don't get more consideration in regard to scheduling, and you were a little surprised at that response, Kelly.
I think he was a little put off with the question. I think he thought it was I think he handled it beautifully, but I think he thought it was a stupid question. Mm-hmm. And when he answers it the way he answers it, we'll see what you guys think.
All right, as we head to the break, our good friends at Forest Health remind you that keeping up with your favorite team is fun, but you should never forget the most important player. You get an annual physical. Be sure your health is as good as it can be. Forest Health can help you with expert medical care closer to home, foresthealth.org. Opening segment, of course, was sponsored by our good friends at Movie Star Restaurant. That's where you go for the best buffet in the Pine Belt. 25 years of serving it up. It's absolutely delicious. Had a stuffed baked potato and brisket Friday night. So tender, Kelly. I thought about you.
Man, I'm just thinking about it right now.
Movie Star Restaurant. Proud to be part of the Eagle Hour family. We're proud you're part of it, too. We'll be right back.
Big news from Robinson Electric Supply in Laurel. We've moved. You'll now find us directly behind our old building, right by Sawmill Animal Hospital. We're still your trusted electrical distributor, carrying everything from conduit to tape. And don't forget our full line of Milwaukee tools. Whether you're a contractor or a DIY pro, stop by the new Robinson Electric Supply at 1222 West 6th Street and see what's lighting up Laurel. Robinson Electric Supply. New location, same trusted service.
The Eagle Hour. Southern Miss to the top.
Let's get right back to it. Eagle Tire West sponsors this segment of our program. They're on Highway 98 West in Hattiesburg. That's where you go for Goodyear tires and all major brands. Full service on your car or truck. They've owned it since 1985, a local family. The great Matt Warren and his dad. Dad runs Eagle Tire up on Hardy Street. Matt and the guys run Eagle Tire West. Same service, both locations. Great local people. Certainly hope you'll do business with them. As well as MCS Home Center for home repair, home remodeling, home construction. Everything you need for your next home project, lawn, or garden is available at MCS Home Center in Hattiesburg, Highway 98 West. You were out there just this weekend, Santa?
Yeah, because Ernesto didn't look at the list as closely as so I have to drive to MCS Home Center to cover Ernesto's tracks.
Did you deduct that from his pay?
There'll be a few less pesos in his.
Yes, I'm sure they will. I know what kind of boss you are. All right, Kelly, with an extensive interview with Commissioner Keith Gill. And in the second part, Kelly ventures into what we've all been wanting to hear the commissioner respond to. What are they going to do about Sunbelt basketball, and why in the world are Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina not playing every year in baseball?
In your address, you mentioned baseball, softball, golf, soccer, among some other sports.
Yeah.
No mention of basketball.
Yeah.
I was intrigued by that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I did mention basketball in my remarks because I talked about how great our women were last year, and I did talk about how much work we need to do in men's basketball. So
fair enough.
We do have to get a little better in men's basketball. So we've got some work to do in that sport, and I know our coaches and our ADs and presidents are committed to doing it. So we're working on a strategic plan right now. And hopefully we can make some movement and get back to where we were a few years back when we were winning games in the NCAA tournament.
On the Eagle Hour on our show, a lot of radio guys and coaches had said one of the things that if they could change things, it would be get rid of the 4-game road trips that a lot of the teams had last year in basketball. And you did mention scheduling just very briefly this morning. Is that part of the strategic plan going forward?
We'll certainly be looking at it. I don't know that we'll necessarily get rid of it because, for everybody that wants something gone, there's someone who thinks that actually is helpful for some reason. And so, but we'll be looking at everything. We do want to try to get better, and the schedule is a big part of that. Like where you play, how you play, when you play is certainly impactful as to your chances of success. So that certainly will be a part of any kind of review and any kind of evaluation that we have.
I bet this next question you've never been asked, but I've just been at this so long. Years ago, when Southern Miss was in the Metro Conference, Louisville was a part of that conference. Denny Crum was the basketball coach, and Louisville used to swing a really big stick as to what they wanted, and they would either get what they wanted or they threatened to leave the conference.
Yeah.
Could you ever foresee, and I'm just hypothetically talking, like James Madison, for example, has had a great run. Troy has had a great run. Would you ever anticipate any schools in the conference saying, all right, look, we've been, and James Madison now could say, look, we've been to the National Football Playoff. We want a little more consideration than some of the other schools to where we want it. Would you ever anticipate any school ever trying to flex their muscle like that?
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing about a conference is I think every school is focused on the whole, but they're also focused on kind of what is in their best interest too at the same time. And I think there's always tension there. So you could certainly see a school asking that. I think one of the great things about our conference is that we are built to where it really is the collection of the schools and how we do our business. And I don't know that any one school is so important that I think we would change those values. So I think we really are committed to kind of equity across our 14 schools. I think we're committed to the way that we do things. And I really do believe that our schools are committed to that. So I would not anticipate, I don't anticipate any schools saying that, and I also wouldn't anticipate the other schools kind of acquiescing to something like that either. So I don't think it's something we'd hear, and I don't think it would be something that would be compelling to the other members.
Final question. I want to go back to the basketball before we put a lid on that. Last year we talked about the same thing that men's basketball needs to get better.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this strategic plan. Is there anything you can tell us about some of the things you guys are even contemplating?
Yeah, well, we talk a little bit about scheduling. I think scheduling is really important. We've got to figure out and understand, what kind of investments need to be made, whether that's from an NIL standpoint. I mean, I think one of the hard things about basketball is the inflationary pressures on basketball rosters are through the roof, probably more so than even football. And so I think that's a challenge. I just think it's also hard. I think a lot of it does go around scheduling, but different parts. Who you can schedule, how you find games, where you can play those games. All those things kind of matter in terms of a witch's brew and that type of thing. I think we got to look, obviously, at our championship and how that works, and if there are things there. So I really think it's a kind of a holistic look at everything we do and see if there are changes there that we want to make that make sense that can help us kind of move the needle.
Final question. This is about baseball. This year, it just so happened that the schedule was that Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina, two of the premier teams, I think is clear that at this point they are, didn't get to play each other. Now the Coastal and Southern Miss will get to play this year. Troy is also in there now with what they've done. When you talk about scheduling a bit, is there any way that it can be assured that the premier schools would get to play each other during the regular season?
Yeah, certainly we could do that. I just think that, our rotations work. If there's a time where, you miss a school at one time, I don't know that I have a big issue with that. I don't know that you're going to get it right every time in terms of when someone's hot and another team's hot, they're going to play each other. And so I really like how we schedule. We just got 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. One hosted a super regional one, and one went to Omaha. So I certainly think, missing that, would have been better if they played. Yeah, maybe. But what do you give up? What game do you lose? What game doesn't happen? Southern Miss ended up hosting a regional. And so I actually think it all worked pretty well. So I understand why people would say, hey, you should play that game. But, trying to work through our scheduling progressions, I think they actually work pretty well when we think about all the outcomes.
And there's only so many weekends in a season, too, that you can't play everybody.
Yeah, and you just can't play everyone. You can't have everything. Like, one of the things I always talk to our folks about is We can only solve the problems we're trying to solve, but we can't solve every problem. And I would say the least of my worries in terms of our baseball schedule looking back was whether Coastal and Southern Miss played in the regular season. I don't know that had any bearing on our success. And would have been nice to see, of course. Would have been great. But I don't know that it really impacted us in any kind of significant way when we look at the big picture.
Oh, Commissioner, you're killing us.
You get to play them this year, and you'll get to play them for like the next 11 years or however long the rotation works. You know what I mean?
Take what you can get, right?
Well, I just think it works fine. I get it. People want everything, and that's fine. That's their job. But we're running a conference, and we can't solve for everything. We just can't. We solve for the things we can solve for. And I would be hard-pressed for anyone to say, relative to the outcomes last year, that our scheduling was poor.
Commissioner, as always, we appreciate your being straightforward and always appreciate your time with us. Thanks so much. Continued success.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, straight from the horse's mouth, the commissioner doesn't think it's a problem, and I guess that's that.
Well, the problem is, and here's where I disagree with his reasoning. Oh, we still got 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. Nothing about Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina has anything to do with the NCAA tournament. It has to do with the regular season title, where Southern Miss, year after year, has not been able to catch Coastal Carolina because they don't play.
Right.
That's the issue. It's not about whether or not Coastal and Southern Miss are going to get into the tournament. They're always going to get into the tournament. They're that good of baseball programs. It's about Southern Miss. This year, thankfully, Coastal lost some games and Southern Miss made up ground enough to win. But they never just had to play them, which to me is the issue. It's not about getting teams into the tournament. It's about playing the other good teams. So at the end of the year, when the standings are there, you're not going, man, we had a great season. We were 22-5, but Coastal's 24-3 because they didn't play us.
And was it just me, or did you kind of get the impression that the commissioner was a little bit like, seriously, of all the things that we have to deal with, and this is what you want?
Yes, but I think it's a legitimate question.
I do too.
And I think Dima just summed it up perfectly. It's unfair. It would have been unfair to Coastal Carolina had that been reversed last year. Not this year, but last year. It's unfair, and it needs to be correct.
Right. You can argue Coastal Carolina this year. Yes, they lost the Sun Belt regular season title by losing some games down the stretch, but they didn't get to play Southern Miss either.
Right.
If they would have beaten Southern Miss 2 out of 3, they'd have been regular season
Correct.
champs.
And I'm sure that's what they would tell you right now.
And I don't know what he's talking about the next 11 years. That's not how the rotation works, at least as far as I understand. Southern Miss has a base amount of teams that are around them that they play every single year. The Arkansas States, Louisiana's, Troy's. But these East teams, they seem to be on a rotation of every other year, every 2 years. I don't know what he's talking about.
Wherever we send Sander, he stirs up trouble.
Well, I think it's a fair question.
I think it is, too. I think he did a great job.
And here's the problem I have with it, though. Coastal Carolina not only doesn't play Southern Miss a lot, they also don't play Troy either.
Yes.
Right.
That is just ridiculous.
Yeah, if you're replacing Southern Miss and Troy with Georgia State.
Yeah, exactly. Georgia State and James Madison.
You clearly have 3 teams that are above the rest. Louisiana's pretty close.
Yeah.
I think they ought to be playing Louisiana every year, actually.
Yes.
I think all the better teams ought to play each other every year.
I think we should have a hybrid weekend the last weekend. Your 1 and 2 play each other, your 3 and 4 play each other. I just think that would be awesome.
All right, we've got more interviews than I can begin to tell you. We're going to put together a Sun Belt football countdown coming up here in the next couple of weeks, a month of football coverage. We're going to talk to coaches from around the league, bowl officials, the commissioner, you name it. We're going to cover it like nobody else does, but of course, that's what we do. We'll be right back.
You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour. The Eagle Hour. Southern Miss to the top.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Glad you could be with us on a Monday afternoon. I want to thank Mo Baby Yay Company down at 2902 Hardy Street in Hattiesburg for sponsoring our program. Great place for wonderful desserts, and you can get them freshly made anytime you walk into business, plus great cold and hot coffees. Also, Genesis of Hattiesburg, they're the official auto dealer of our program. Their sedans and SUVs are all at Mississippi's exclusive Genesis dealership. there at Highway 98 West in Hattiesburg. And we sure appreciate all the loyalty that these great sponsors show to our program and to the university. Hoping to talk to a former athletics director, former team football captain, General Jeff Hammond. Scheduled to have him on the show Friday. Had some issues. I couldn't get him on. Scheduled him again today. And looking now to reach out to General Hammond. Hopefully he'll reach out to us here in the next few minutes. But all right, Kelly, recap it. Great interview. Extensive interview with the league commissioner. Your thoughts?
Thank you. I really enjoy. I'll say this about Keith Gill. You know, he will answer the questions. Might dance around them a couple of times, like the Louisiana Tech question. I said, had it not worked out, you know, who would you have focused on? Which he didn't really answer. Pretty much telling me that Louisiana Tech was first and foremost the school that they wanted to get. And getting to talk with head football coach Buddy Cumbie a little bit later, and in our Eagle Hour Sunbelt football preview, you'll see the significant amount of money that Louisiana Tech is going to save just in travel expenses. Remember, it's not just football, but it's all the other sports that they have, not having to go to Delaware and New Mexico, you know, to play some of your games. It's staggering the amount of money that Louisiana Tech is going to save. But I wanted to really give a shout out to the two players that Southern Miss took, Davis Dalton and Mathis Haygood. I'll tell you what, impressive young guys. And Haygood now, remember, he was a guy that came over from Marshall. And a lot of the other guys from Marshall, you know, went to Memphis with, what's his name? Coach Huff. when he went to Memphis, but Haygood, the fact that he stayed here, put in some significant reps, and fits into this defense, man, an articulate, really sharp couple of guys. So I congratulate both of those guys and Coach Anderson for choosing them to represent Southern Miss. They did a great job.
That guy you couldn't remember, Huff. He was here for about 127 days.
Oh, that's what I was saying.
It was something like that.
It wasn't long enough for me to remember his name.
Well, I don't think a lot of people at the university ever met him, quite frankly, but that's a story for another.
And pretty intense guy.
A little bit. Is the commissioner intense, or he just seems so laid back about certain things to me, as if everything's just going perfectly well?
I think that is the impression that he gives, but reading his body language when I was asking him about basketball, and again, this is not a new topic. We've talked about improving the league in basketball for 3 years now, and it's always we have a strategic plan. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Nothing. If there's any covert activity going on to make the conference better in basketball, I don't see it. Now, part of it might be because of the transfer portal and the big money that a lot of these players are making now. And a lot of those schools just simply can't afford. So you're going out there getting the Division II players like Coach Ladner is, getting some of the foreign players to come to the different schools and play. But I don't see anything covert trying to make the league any better. And it might be because this constantly changing landscape is thwarting such issues. But I just haven't seen anything.
David, your thoughts? You hear anything, see anything among your peers or when you were down there that made you think there is a plan, even if it's not public, to correct this?
Basketball?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, it's funny because I loved that Kelly asked that question of like, all right, I hear what you're saying we need to fix it, but what's your plan to fix it? And he kind of didn't say a lot. And, it's such a tough sport. I mean, it really is. when you really think about it, you have to turn over these rosters, but not only that, the amount of money these players are getting now. I mean, Tyleik Weeks, as we documented, $1.5 million to Memphis, things like that. Your budget has to be so over the top for basketball to even compete that a lot of athletic directors right now are thinking, all right, what's my cost-benefit analysis of that? Like, how much money do I want to put into basketball and how much return on investment am I going to get without that much money? Like, why not, especially in Southern Miss's case, why not use some of that money and put it over into baseball? Why not put some of that money over into football where, maybe we can compete in a more realistic scenario? And I think Jay Ladner here at Southern Miss has done well with what he's been given. He's been able to get players here. He made the joke to us on the show a couple of weeks ago or months ago, however long it was when he was last on here. He said, listen, you come to Southern Miss, you become a millionaire, just not here.
Right, exactly.
But I think that's the problem that everybody in the group of five is dealing with, and especially if you're in a conference that's not a notable basketball conference. I think the MAC is a little bit different, where that is kind of a notable American basketball conference, the Big East, things like that. But Sunbelt's just not known for basketball, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
And what's especially frustrating, and Bob, you've alluded to this before on this very program, when it comes to making money, the lowest overhead of any sport is basketball.
It's the money maker if you're successful at it.
Because there aren't many players that are on scholarship.
Right.
So if you can put people butts in the seats in those arenas, it's the easiest sport to make money on. But it's the chicken versus the egg. The people don't come unless you win, or you don't win unless you spend money on good players that you can't afford to get because people aren't coming to the games. So it's an ongoing difficult situation, and I'm not sure I can really criticize the commissioner other than to say that's your job, right? Us regular people, we don't know how to make it better.
Is this fair to say, guys, with the exception of a year here or there, and I say this with all due respect, Southern Miss has never had a great men's basketball program. It's never had a consistent winner. I mean, I think you got to go back to the MK Turk days since you had consistent winning postseason teams consecutive years in a row. Is that fair to say?
And that was a long time ago in a world far, far away.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it is. It is. And it took Coach Turk a long time to get to that point.
Right.
And then they had a run of 5 or 6 years where they
Coach
were.
Ladner's had a couple good teams. That won the regular season, if I recall correctly, and have been competitive. But overall, I mean, that money's just never been there. And
it's not where Sun Belt teams have been getting into the NCAA tournament and winning a game.
Right.
I know the Conference USA has won some, here or there, but by and large, the Sun Belt is a one and done. So it's a tough sport too because you play the longest season of all, and then if you don't win your conference tournament, you have very little chance of playing for anything significant after that.
Here's a question to both of you. You first, Kelly. Is the league in good shape with Keith Gill leading it?
I think generally you'd have to say yes. But basketball still is. I think that's something he's got to correct to add to his legacy.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly with everything else, it seems like we're in the right sense. Other than Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss not playing in baseball, I think that's ridiculous. I know I keep going back to that, but it just is true. It just doesn't make any sense. And not only that. Why are we playing baseball in Montgomery? I'm sorry. Let's just put that out there as well. But overall, yes. I mean, and he's been there for a while. I think his contract's to 2031 off the top of my head. So he's here for a couple more seasons to lead the Sun Belt. I think for the most part, he's made phenomenal, conference expansion decisions, bringing Southern Miss in, bringing Louisiana Tech in, bringing James Madison in. I mean, all those he's hit on. I mean, James Madison, came into the league with Southern Miss, if I remember correctly, and certainly – they've made their stamp in the Sun Belt with everything that they've won. And then, we saw what Marshall has done. We've seen what Southern Miss has done, so he certainly made good decisions in conference realignment and making these contracts. Certainly you want to see some better things in certain areas, but overall, this is certainly the conference you want to be in. That's the Southern Miss.
And I asked the question about one particular school flexing their muscles like Louisville used to do, because if there's a school that does that in the Sun Belt, it's James Madison.
Correct.
Because of their beautiful facilities, the money that just seems to never run out at James Madison. So if there was a school that would say, look, we think we're the kingpin in this conference and this is what we want, and we want to be favored, have some favors.
That's where Billy Napier went?
Yes.
So he's happy there. I mean, he's got some resources. It's not like he took a massive resource step backwards, is it?
And in a place that's a lot more patient.
Yeah.
Than the University of Florida, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you have interviews with 10 coaches, I believe I counted them this morning, 2 bowl commissioners, and the commissioner of the league. I think we're going to have a pretty good football countdown on the Eagle Hour.
Yeah, I hope that everybody will, because we take our responsibility seriously about being your eyes and ears, and hopefully we ask questions that all of you would hope that we would ask of these other coaches. And you were talking about Billy Napier. I really felt good because once the interview was done with him, and of course they're in the Eastern Division, so we're not going to get to cover James Madison a whole lot. But when the interview was over, he stood up and he thanked me. He said, look, I've done a lot of these today. That was the best one. He said, you obviously were prepared to do this. And he said, I appreciate the fact that you took time to research our team.
Yeah, our guys are working even if they're not in the studio. DBAT sponsors this segment of the program. It's located down on Hardy Street. That's where you go for baseball and softball training. If you're an adult athlete like my man Kelly Sander here, it's where he goes to fine-tune his long-distance running game. They can help you, too. They have a great pro shop. The instructors are awesome, aren't they, Kelly?
All they do for my long-distance running is put up signs that say free beer.
SuperTalk Eagle Hour podcast. It's available every day most days on Apple, Audible, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube. It's available every day. Alexa or Serial Player.
He's on a roll, isn't he, today, Dima?
Here we go.
Big news from Robinson Electric Supply in Laurel. We've moved. You'll now find us directly behind our old building, right by Sawmill Animal Hospital. We're still your trusted electrical distributor, carrying everything from conduit to tape. And don't forget our full line of Milwaukee tools. Whether you're a contractor or a DIY pro, stop by the new Robinson Electric Supply at 1222 West 6th Street and see what's lighting up Laurel. Robinson Electric Supply. New location, same trusted service.
Southern Miss to the top. To the top. You're tuned in to the Eagle Hour.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Last segment of our show every day is sponsored by our wonderful friends at Jewel Masters. They're down on Highway 98 West, and that's where you go. For your gold and silver exchanges, if you've got old gold and silver at your house, jewelry, coins, whatever, have no use for them, maybe they're just not your fashion anymore and you'd prefer to have some greenbacks, cold hard cash is waiting on you at Jewel Masters. Marty Vick's been buying gold and silver longer than anyone in the Pine Belt. He'll give you the best price, no question about it. It'll be confidential, and it will be fast. And if you want to take that money and cater a church event or a business event or a community event, Kelly Sander, where would you go?
You guys, I thought you guys had taken notes on this because I've been over this and over this.
You've been over this before.
There will be a quiz, and you go to Dickey's Barbecue Pit.
Correct.
Whether it's a small group event, a World Cup watch party, which there will be no more World Cup now, that España won yesterday. You like how I was official on
very impressive.
España.
Very impressive.
Or a large event, whether it's brisket, chicken, whatever you want, smoked or barbecued, they can take care of that for you. Plus, the wide variety of side dishes makes it a complete meal for everybody that everybody will enjoy.
Yeah, no question. Food's always great, delicious, fresh. Dickey's, Justin Harris and his crew who run Dickey's and Fuzzy's are just the best people in the world. And again, they're local. They're local. Please do business with locally owned businesses. All right, guys, news and notes.
We're in the middle of summer, Bob. There's not really that much.
No, there's not.
I wanted to ask you though, Dima, because we really haven't gotten to talk to you about your experiences from Media Day. Anything that stood out to you?
I mean,
in the time that you spent there, other than the food was great.
Well, I didn't really get much because I went after you, but
oh my gosh,
no,
you and Joe Bryant,
yeah, for real. No, I just go back to Southern Miss and what we were kind of talking about on Friday is I just feel so much better about the direction of the program. Not that I doubted Blake, when he was hired or anything like that, and obviously I have a kind of a unique view on it because I'm not a fan, so I'm kind of just looking at it from an analytical standpoint. It seemed to me very much like all right, he's here. We're just going to put him in, the head coaching job and just see what happens. He has experience, whatever. But certainly after talking to him and his players, I mean, I just feel so much better about the direction of the program now. Does that mean that I'm upping my win total or anything like that from this year? I don't know yet. I need to see fall camp to start nailing down exactly where I think this team is going to win. But I certainly think that, Blake was walking around with this sense of like, I've been here before. I know that you guys may not trust me, and I know that my team is not. Nobody knows anything about my team. I'm still getting to learn my team. But listen, I know how to win, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. And something that I thought was interesting is I heard that before from a previous head coach here, not Charles Huff, but the one before that.
Come on.
And we were hearing a lot of the same rhetoric. But in the back of your mind, you just kind of like rolled your eyes.
Coaches.
Right. And so you kind of just rolled your eyes because you kind of just knew that what he was saying just wasn't true. But with Blake, he's so transparent, he's so honest that you just kind of have to believe him, until he proves you otherwise.
Guys, I want to interrupt you here. I just discovered this story. I want to read this, and I want to get your comment. 2 minutes left. Outkick, very reputable national source. Outkick. The physical brawl between travel softball parents in Laurel, Mississippi over the weekend was just round one. Round two is taking place on Facebook with both sides aggressively blaming the other. Fighting parents from Team Texas and Team Louisiana are dropping paragraphs of toxic allegation, claiming everything from biased tournament directors to pregame trash talk triggered the melee. It's official. Travel softball culture has completely broken the brains of suburban adults. Kids could be heard screaming and crying as their parents fought over a softball tournament.
There was video of that emerged on
what do you make
social
of that,
media.
Kelly Sanders?
It's not just softball; it's baseball too. Travel baseball, softball. It's the more they can get parents out of the equation. There's a baseball park I understand somewhere in Pennsylvania that they opened this brand new field where the parents have to drop the children off, then the parents have to park another half mile away. Then they go into a tower. Where if they're at field 1, they go to the first floor. If they're on field 2, they go to the second floor. Field 3, the third floor, fourth floor, so on. And parents watch the game from a mile away on closed-circuit television because they have been so badly behaved, they couldn't get people to umpire. They couldn't get people to coach. And then once the game is over, then they open the gates to where the parents can go pick up their child, and they are instructed.
Have you seen that locally in your base? Because I know you coached baseball for many, many years.
Oh, yes. And I've been out of it a couple of years now, but I talk to guys that are still in, and they go, if I didn't have a child involved, there's no way I would subject myself to this.
Well, that's a shame for the kids. The kids, this was a big moment for them, a big moment. And I coach girls in softball, so I know. It means a lot to them. The parents destroyed that experience for their child, Dima.
And I don't know.
I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just embarrassing. It really is. I mean, you're a grown adult. Like, come on.
And I don't know when it started. I think about 10 years ago, maybe, and it's just gotten progressively worse.
It wasn't that it just didn't exist really when I was involved in it, so, to some degree.
Yeah,
but nothing like what you said.
And the Jerry Springer Show is off the air, people. Yeah. All right.
And Montel hadn't been around for a while.
Ricky Lake.
All right, there's a name you haven't heard in a long time. That only Kelly Sander would remember, the Ricky Lake Show.
Yeah, my favorite episode. Come on, girl, you must be tripping. You're way too fat to be out there stripping. That's my favorite one.
We better get off the air.
Southern Miss.
To the top.
I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.